All right, man. As we all know, the trade went down. James Harden is officially a Brooklyn Net, and Kyrie Irving is actually still there. Crazy. Even with all the accolades and all the firepower this team will bring, we all know what the big question mark is. How the hell is this going to fit? James Harden and Kevin Durant, two former teammates, yes, they played Saturday night, and yes, they looked amazing. But the biggest question mark of them all, Kyrie Irving, he wasn't even there. Now, I'm going to talk about the Brooklyn trade towards the end with every team involved on every angle, but I want to talk about teams that formed big threes in the past successfully and how long it took to actually work.
Seeing the Celtics is very, very motivating. Just knowing that team helped me understand the firepower that you need in order to advance, and also how stars have to sacrifice in order for a team to win.
As we heard LeBron say, those ass whoopings by Boston, they basically taught him the firepower you need to actually compete for a championship, but most importantly, the sacrifice it takes once you form those type of teams. When Boston formed this big three in '07, all three of those players were very much in their primes, all three of them. Paul Pierce was coming off a season where, his team collectively was trash, but individually he put up all-star numbers. Kevin Garnett, similar to Paul Pierce. He had a dominant year, but he had just turned 30 and he was coming off his third season not making the playoffs. And Ray Allen, and this was Ray Allen, not the spot-up shooter Ray Allen, like the one that put the ball on the floor, was dunking on people, creating for everybody. This Ray Allen, he had just come off his second season not making the playoffs. Once they formed this crazy big three, just like Brooklyn, they were doubted. People really had the questions. With three alphas like this, who was going to take the last shot? How is it going to work? How fast is it going to work? And needless to say, it worked instantly. This was Kevin Garnett's first game in a Celtics uniform, and they started their season off 8-0 with an average of a 15-point victory margin in their first 8 games ever playing together. It was crazy. Then they went on to go 29-3 in their first 32 games. Then they finished their season off 66-16, the league's best record, led the league in almost every defensive category, led by their Defensive Player of the Year, Kevin Garnett, and ultimately went on to stop the MVP in just 6 games. And it was bad. It was a blowout. To me, what made this trio so special so damn early, it's like they all knew their roles and they completely embraced it. Kevin Garnett, he was an absolute hound defensively, controlling the paint, rim protection, switching off and pick and rolls on guards. He did everything. Ray Allen, he made the biggest sacrifice of everybody. He completely changed his play style, and if you look at his usage rate, he had the biggest dip of all three of them. And Paul Pierce, he was their clear closer. Down the stretch, you knew who to give it to, man. He was legit the truth, and he embraced that role, and he took it. You add all of that, mixed with their side pieces that just gelled beautifully, and you just had a perfect team. Also, just a quick side note, none of these three had championships, and all three of them were fresh off of seasons where their teams were in the bottom of the conference, so they were willing to sacrifice. 3 years later, the player that probably suffered more than anybody from that Boston Big Three, he went on and formed his own one, and I think his was a little bit more powerful. Even though it was Dwayne Wade's team first, and even though he had the championships, I think we all knew subconsciously LeBron was the best player on this team. We just had to give it to D-Wade because he was there first. This exact reason, this pretty much haunted their whole first season, and it was the reason why they lost. As talented as that Miami team was, they came out in their first 17 games flat, and they were damn near 500 after 17 games. And in that 8th loss, guess who they lost to? And LeBron played awful in that game, awful. And if you look at LeBron and D-Wade's averages for those specific 17 games, you can tell, they just weren't themselves. They were both terrible for their standards. Then, after a very shaky start, that team was way too talented to just tank and all that, so they did go on a pretty good streak. But guess who also ended that? And again, in that game, LeBron played terrible. Maybe we should have seen the signs earlier, like him in Dallas, that just wasn't a year for that. Miami was just like way too talented, bro, and they did go on to win 58 games and get to the NBA Finals. But once they got to the NBA Finals, that question of whose team is it, that showed up again and it destroyed them. Just so y'all can see how tentative and how scared LeBron looked, look at how many shots he took as the best player on the team in comparisons to Chris Bosh and D Wade. Like, that should never happen. And just for more comparisons and to show you how it should have been, look at the shot attempts in 2012 and in 2013 when they actually won. As great as they were and as talented as they were, it took one whole season for D Wade, one of the most selfless players of all time, to basically tell LeBron, bro, this is your team, give you the keys, you take us to the promised land because you are the best player on the planet. Then, once the pieces got old and LeBron really didn't think he could win with that team anymore, he went back home and formed a younger, more unproven version of the Big Three. At this time, Kyrie Irving was 22 years old. We think he's a little off and a little different at 28. Imagine this mental at 22. Also, he was fresh off a two-time All-Star appearance, and the last one, he just won the All-Star MVP. So you know he was really feeling himself. But even with all his individual success, his teams were terrible. And that was always his thing. Like, can he lead a team to success? It hung with him then, and it kind of still hangs with him now. And the other piece, who's still kind of stuck there right now, Kevin Love, he had the exact same problem. A lot of people might be too young or they may have forgot, but Kevin Love wasn't always this scapegoatish type of player for LeBron. Like, he used to be a dog in Minnesota. Like Kyrie, he just couldn't get that team to the next level, and part of it was management and the stuff they put around him. So, you know, he kind of had to join Cleveland and see what he can do. Cleveland, I mean, they just couldn't quite put it together their first 12 games, and there were clear chemistry issues. Between having, you know, LeBron, a solidified champion, Kyrie kind of in his own world, and Kevin Love never playing with players like Kyrie and LeBron, and a new coach that never coached in the country before, David Blatt, it was just a little bit of a mess. It even got so bad that LeBron, in the middle of the season, this man took a 2-week vacation, and when he came back, they were under 500. Now, I don't know exactly what LeBron did. There are some speculations about him getting some extra sauce in him. I don't know what he did. But when he came back, they did go 34-9 and make a dominant surge to the NBA Finals. Kyrie got hurt, so they obviously didn't win the NBA championship, but the following season, they were pretty much all in sync. This season, they fired David Blatt, even though he wasn't coaching bad, and they had a respectable record. Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith were huge for Cleveland. They went 12-2 during the whole Eastern Conference playoffs, and they came back from down 3-1 against Golden State and won the championship. If it wasn't for this move right here, they may have won one, maybe even two more. Who knows? And since we already brought it up, let's just talk about it. Similar to Boston, this was the team that took no time to dominate the NBA. Like, it was no adjustment period. It was no trying to get used to each other. Like, automatically, they were dominant. Also, unlike Cleveland, Boston, or Miami, this wasn't a situation where you added 3 stars to a completely new team and they never played together. Like, this was a team that already won 73 games, adding arguably the greatest off-ball scorer of all time to that team. Like, it was easy. Yes, they lost their first one, but they went on to win the next 17 out of 19. They were so dominant that KD took a month off basically when he got hurt against the Wizards, and they still went 15-4. I know we all talk about the 2016 Warriors and them winning 73 games and all that, but how about we talk about the fact that in a 3-year span, they had 3 of the top 7 greatest records of all time back to back to back, and 2 of them was without Kevin Durant. Now, it's that time. Let's talk about Brooklyn and the big blockbuster trade that took the league by storm last Wednesday. For Brooklyn, I understand the trade. I understand it. You have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving under contract, and you want to win now while you have them under contract. But I still feel like it may have been a little unnecessary. This, is a championship or bust type of move. And I don't really see them winning a championship this year. So it might just backfire if you never win. Also, I would have liked to see Kyrie and KD at least for one season mixed with all the depth before you go all in on a James Harden. Like, that's a big ass investment, but who knows, man, it might pay off. For Houston, I absolutely love the move. Like, love the move. This is just my logic, bro. If I'm trading a player like James Harden, if I can get back a Victor Oladipo on a rental, and I already have a pretty solid team right now, so basically I can keep my fans and all the Houstonians happy for 1 year, and I locked up my future, I won. Like, I won. Right now, we're going to be competitive and possibly make the playoffs, so we're still a fun team to watch, and my future is secure. I don't see in what world did they possibly lose. For Indiana, I love the move even more. Now, of course, I liked it a lot better before I heard Karras had the kidney thing. I'm hoping and praying he's okay. But they basically flipped Victor Oladipo, who was going to leave anyway. He's on the last year of his contract, and he's not taking your $25 million that you offered him. They flipped Victor Oladipo for Caris LeVert, who's on a much more manageable contract, and he gives you similar production. Now, if you look at their major 4 players, and TJ Warren is hurt right now, but when he comes back, if he comes back, they're all locked up under very good contracts. Look at Sabonis. Look at how much you're paying him, and look at what he's doing. He's way underpaid. And as for Cleveland, they got Taurean Prince and Jared Allen. Now, Taurean Prince, I'm not too high on, but the Jared Allen pickup, I know a lot of people looking at it like, man, they got so many bigs, 75 bigs and all that, but that's more for the future. Like, Andre Drummond is on the last year of his contract, and I can't see him coming back. He's probably going to leave, so you basically just secured your future rim protector if you can keep him, because Jared Allen, he's on the last year of his contract too. And Kevin Love eventually, hopefully, he's going to leave. So you basically cleared up room for Jared Allen to take Andre Drummond's role once he leaves. Ultimately, everybody got what they wanted. But if Caris LeVert can stay healthy, Indiana and Houston, that's my favorites. Like, they came out massive winners. If you guys like this video, make sure you like this video, man. Follow me on all of my social media sites, Twitter, IG, especially Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. That's where you stay active with me. Do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned.